Hello and welcome to the first bonus Wednesday video in a very long time. I have not had time to film them and I'm utilizing my long weekend to film some of ideas that I have on a list I've been wanting to do. First off, I'm truly loving my hair. I'm really loving my short hair. I'm so happy with it. Thank you, Miss Sherry. And a big bonus of having short hair is I can wear earrings now and you can see them. You can see my earrings. My hair, one, isn't covering them, two, isn't tangled in them. Same goes with necklaces. I can wear a necklace and people can see it, and my hair also doesn't get like caught in the little clip in the back, and then when I go to take it off, I rip out like a handful of hair. Like it's so nice. Also, it's hot this weekend, but it's not bothering me. I'm like the opposite of Elsa. The heat never bothered me anyway, even though it actually did when I used to wear a hot blanket on my head, but now it's so much better. But as you saw from the title of this video, I want to tell you about my favorite podcasts. This is important information to me. I listen to podcasts all the time. It's my favorite background noise. Sometimes even when I'm skating, I will put on a podcast instead of music if I'm just not vibing with music for some reason. Like, I feel like I used to listen to talk radio as a kid, and that might be why. So anywho, I want to go over some of my favorite ones. I have them on my phone. I'm gonna start with my number one podcast. Like, it's one of those podcasts where I am eagerly awaiting a new episode whenever I am blessed with one, and that is the Mystery Team Inc. podcast with Maggie and Kayla. If you know the theme song, you know why I said it like that. So they do mysteries, conspiracy theories, like that kind of stuff, but none of it's insensitive. You know how some of the murder mystery podcasts of the world can be a little insensitive towards, I don't know, humans? Just seem to kind of lack empathy. These are more like, one of my favorite ones, in fact, I'm gonna scroll down. The Fairy Investigation Society. I loved that episode. I feel like if you want an episode to start with, that's a great episode to start with because it's funny, it's interesting, they do a lot of research, it's great. But yeah, that's my like number one favorite podcast. I forgot to mention, I discovered the Mystery Team Inc. podcast during lockdown, and they had like 100 episodes up already, and I started all the way back to the beginning. My first episode was the one on Atlantis that got me. I was like, ooh, I'm gonna listen to this, see if I like them. Loved them. Fell in love with them instantly. Went back and listened to every podcast, and my routine during the winter in lockdown, because we had an outdoor ice rink, was to grab a cup of coffee, put on my skates, put on one of their podcasts, and just skate around in a circle. And that's self-care. And then tying in second place is the BCC Club with Sarah Schauer and Kendall Landreth, and then the Broski Report with Brittany Broski. I also loved Sarah and Brittany's podcast. It's no more, but I avidly digested every episode as they came out. But these two podcasts, I love them. So I really enjoy the BCC Club with Sarah and Kendall because this is how I feel like I stay in touch with the internet. Although some of the stuff I'm like, yes, please talk about that. I've come in contact with that a few times. What is going on? What is this chaos? Other times I'm like, I did not know this was a thing. This was not showing up on my FYP, and now I know. And I feel I'm happy to know because the way they get information across, I enjoy. Brittany's podcast is just so incredibly relatable because she's basically just sitting in a room talking to herself, similar to what I'm doing now. And she's kind of talking about her favorite things, but just, I get it. Is there any way to, I don't know how else to put it. Like the making herself laugh. Sometimes I think things to myself and I will start crying, laughing in public or just at home alone. So I get it. I just get it. Another favorite podcast that I've recently discovered, maybe like a month ago, and it just hits the nostalgia in a different way. It's called Talks in Class by Jenna Barclay. You will have seen her on TikTok. If you've gotten early 2000s to 2010 nostalgia on your FYP, you will know who she is. But I love her podcast. So I was like a little kid in the early 2000s, like we're talking kindergarten. So she was like the older girls that I was looking up to as a little kid, who I just thought were the coolest, and I loved how they dressed, and I loved their car and music and their makeup and their hair. And she's kind of like talking about all of that, and it's just it puts me back in that like cozy little first grader just like looking up at their babysitter like, you were the coolest person ever. And I still think they're the coolest people ever. But anywho, love that podcast. I'm almost completely caught up with it. I have 3 episodes and then I will be caught up, and they're nice and short. They're only a half hour. Some podcasts, Mystery Team Inc. can be like 2 hours long, which I love. Like I like doing laundry, getting something done and listening to them. And then the other ones are like an hour-ish, but Talks in Class is a half hour, which is just like the perfect, I'll put it on while I'm driving. One that I recently found, and by recently I mean I've only listened to one episode so far and I loved it, is Rebuttal with Reb Maisel. She's a lawyer, she's a law woman, she's so smart and funny, but she just talks about, like, I have to be in a mood for these. Like I have to be in a dismantle the patriarchy type of energy, which I'm almost always in, if we're being honest, but like really in it. And then I'll listen to one of her podcasts, I'll be like, yeah. The recent one I listened to was The Kidnapper Who Sued His Hostages. It's as funny as you can imagine. It was great. Loved it. Love that podcast. Okay, a podcast that is old and like they don't have any new episodes, but I really loved was Learning Lots with Brie Larson and Jesse Ennis. That one's like a good self-reflective, digesting society, just understanding, thinking, questioning, and they have had amazing guests on it. Like I love the episode of Jane Fonda. She's an icon. She's everything. Another podcast I enjoy is the George Poulos podcast because he is just so transparent and open. He's going through like an intense spiritual journey, which honestly I feel like if you're self-aware, you're kind of constantly going through one, but he's just like, here's what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. It's very train of thought, and I don't know, I enjoy bouncing off the things he says, and I like go, oh yeah, this, or I'm like, I agree, and I'm not talking to him, I'm talking in my own brain. That's a really good podcast, especially if you're going through it. I suggest listening to it. It might help you, it might guide you a little bit. And he suggests a lot of really good books to read, so I recommend that one. One of my all-time favorite podcasts. I would put this at number 1, but it's not like a listening talk show kind of podcast. This one I use as a tool. This is so I can live my life. It's called Nothing Much Happens, and it is bedtime stories where nothing much happens. And her voice, her cadence is so soothing, and the stories are just so cozy, and she repeats it twice, and there's some brain science to it, and when you hear it the second time, your brain is able to like relax and turn off because it's like, I already know what happens in the story, we're all good. When I'm having the most difficult time falling asleep, which happens when I'm stressed and anxious and all I need is sleep and rest, I throw this podcast on and I fall asleep instantly. I love it so much. There isn't an episode I wouldn't recommend. And I like to follow it up like with the play next feature. I use deep sleep sounds. I've saved my favorites. I'm not subscribed, so I don't get the full 8-hour ones, but I do get is it 2 hours? Which is honestly all I need to help me stay asleep after I fall asleep with the Nothing Much Happens podcast. And I like the sound of waves or maybe a thunderstorm. I really like the underwater sound one. Like it hits me right in that mermaid part of my soul. I love it. Really wonderful, soothing sounds. And a podcast that I haven't started listening to yet, but I recently discovered, First This, it's a short meditation podcast, and it's by the same person who does Nothing Much Happens. So I want to start listening to her podcasts in the morning as well. And they're only like 10 minutes long, which is perfect because I'm the kind of person who wants to get as much sleep as possible and stay in bed till the very last minute. So I want to start doing these, and I'm going to try to hold myself accountable to listening to them. I want to shout out my friend's podcast. First, Pretty Tough, awesome podcast. She interviews athletes that are in sports like ballet, figure skating, cheerleading, like those kind of sports that are really effing hard, but are beautiful, Not to say that our other sports aren't beautiful to watch, but you know what I mean? Like these are artistic focused sports, but like to the point where they don't even look hard, but they're so hard. Another podcast that is an old one, and it's a story, so it's like an anthology podcast that I really recommend, is Ronstadt. It's voiced by Rhett and Link, which they did an amazing job, but also the like ASMR sounds with it are great, and it's kind of like spooky vibes, so like right now is a great time to start listening to it for Halloween, spooky season. And another spooky anthology podcast that I like that I honestly haven't listened to in a while and need to get back into it is Old Gods of Appalachia, and it is so spooky. Like I cannot listen to it when I have high anxiety because my body starts, sweating. Like I can't handle it. So I can only handle it when I'm in a good mood. It has the same feeling and level of spooky, but with still a little like hee hee ha ha there, but mostly spooky, like 99% spooky, as American Horror Story. I really love it, but I have to be not anxiety ridden to enjoy it. But I think those are all my favorite podcasts for now. There are others I want to start listening to, but we'll get to that. And if you'd like to, please recommend a few of your favorite podcasts down in the comments below. They can be comedy, they can be anthology, they can be meditation, they could be another sleep sound one. I'm open to all the podcasts. I cannot wait to see your recommendations down below. But yes, I think that concludes this little bonus video. I am so happy I finally got to film one. So as always, every Monday, new playlist. On Wednesdays, sometimes a bonus video like this one. And every Friday is the weekly vlog. And I will see ya when I see ya.